Hey, this is Jarrell with Nima Gallery again. Welcome. Well, this interview with William Barnes is a very important interview. I hope that everybody enjoys it. I will have to tell you that, and I hate having this happen, but the equipment went bad on me towards the end of the interview, but I'm still going to air it because the audio works even though the video goes out, right? So you'll be able to watch it to about 2/3 through. And then the video will go out, but the audio will continue. So I pray that you stay tuned for what William has to say. Thank you.
Do your whole top spiel over.
There you go.
Go for it.
Good afternoon. This is Jarrell, and I'm here in Numa Gallery, and I'm here with William Barnes, president of the Birmingham Urban League. How you doing, William?
Doing well, man. How about yourself?
Good, good. Listen, thank you for joining me today.
Not a problem, man.
Appreciate
Glad to
your
be
time.
here.
You're a busy man.
Yeah.
Want to remind you that on May 19th at True Love Church, we will be putting on the very first Putting the Neighbor Back in Neighborhood Community Mixer. That's at 1001 35th Street, Inslee. And we will be giving away a $1,000 gift prize to whoever uploads video of neighborly
Wait a
activity.
minute, $1,000?
$1,000 gift prize.
Can I get in there? Can I use this
Actually,
video?
no, you can't use this video.
And
matter of fact, let me say this, and it has to be an Inslee resident.
Man,
yeah.
look.
But now listen, we're gonna come to the north side. That's where you're from.
I'm from the north side. North side? That's what it is.
So we're gonna come over there. We're gonna come over there. You got Collegeville?
No,
you okay.
no.
Okay.
My
Well,
folks out of college.
okay, well that was up. That was up. You still belong to them. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna give a $1,000 gift prize to whoever uploads video as an Inslee resident who uploads video of neighborly activity. We're starting on the west side, so the west side is the best side. That's what they say, right?
Yeah, that's what they say.
That's what they say.
Yeah,
so we're gonna have you some free food down there. Come down there from 10 o'clock a.m. to 2 p.m. We're gonna have Jamaria Moore come down and speak to us about changing social norms and probate. We're going to have Danny Carr come down and speak about changing social norms and the justice system. I'll be talking about changing social norms in the neighborhood as far as community building. Numa Gallery is all about that. Y'all see me in the hood knocking on the door, right? So y'all know I'm about that. So we want you to come down and have some food and have some entertainment. We're going to have Andrew Toney, by the way, is going to come down and perform for us his hit song, My City. And beautiful song. It's very inspirational. And so I want you to come down and have a good time with us and learn some things. Have free food. Like I said, I'm going to give away those prizes. And we're just going to try to uplift and develop a better atmosphere in our community. Get involved in saving yourselves. That's what's up these days. Ain't that right?
That's what it is.
All right. So William, that PGI, Numa Gallery, is focused on changing social norms. Yeah. Putting the neighbor back in neighborhood is a movement that's geared toward that. So we want to emphasize that. There's a couple of things that because you are the president of one of the historic black organizations in the city, and I know you personally that you are interested in the welfare of black people, and you've got your finger on the pulse of what's going on.
Well, I try. We try.
Well, we appreciate that. I appreciate it, and you're one of a number of people. I don't want to just isolate you, but
please don't. We got to get plenty of shout outs.
Definitely, we have to plenty of shots out. I don't want to think there's just one person, because I love everybody's work. I think everybody that's adding something to the conversation, adding something to the solution. I want to applaud them all. I will never be accused of putting another organization down for the sake of lifting an organization up. I think that's wrong. It's one of the social norms we need to get rid of.
That's it.
Amen.
There you go.
Amen.
There you go.
But because you are the president of the Birmingham Urban League, I want to ask you this question.
Okay.
What do you think about the normal way that black people in the city of Birmingham interact with civic organizations like the Birmingham Urban League?
Well, I can tell you that we don't interact as we did in the 60s. We don't interact as we did in the 70s. There is, for all intents and purposes, there appears to be a lack of value held for your jewel organizations like the Urban League, the NAACP, the SELC, and it's almost like we're kind of left out on some of these islands to where there's not a lot of interaction from people. Whether it's the gifts. Back in the day, it took, in order for Reverend King and those folks to travel, people gave to those organizations for them to be able to, stay up in the hotels and be able to eat and things of that sort. And so now the organizations are still out here fighting these good fights, as my pastor used to say. There's not a lot of involvement. There's not as much as there should be. And we know that the organizations of today and the way we addressed issues yesterday are not the same way we should be addressing issues today. Okay. And I'd have to say to your audience is that I do believe that's probably part of the reason why there's been a disconnect. is because there is some belief and probably some validity to these organizations still doing business as usual.
Right.
But what I submit to you is this, is that if you're standing afar looking at an organization that's been around 100 years and you feel as if the organization should be going a different direction, don't just allow the organization to continue along that path. Get involved.
Yeah.
We need this generation to continue sustaining our historical jewel organizations.
Right.
So that's what it is, man.
And that's at the core
Yeah.
of, I mean, that attitude is at the core of, why putting the neighbor back in the neighborhood has been birthed, is because, people see problems, but they don't want to get involved in being a part of the solution.
Right.
The Birmingham Urban League is a place where you can begin to get involved in the solution. I also like to think that the church communities, and I just send a shout out again to True Love Church, who is hosting our first event, right, who decided that they wanted to get involved in the community and start doing something that was actually, on the back of our shirt it says ministry that matters, right? And so,
I like that.
getting out, not that no other ministry does matter, but getting out in the community and making a difference with those issues that you seem to, that you see need to be addressed.
Right.
Get involved with the Birmingham Urban League. That's my invitation. That's William's invitation, right? We've got to save these civic organizations that are specifically designed to develop black people, because black people still need to be developing them.
That's right.
You
That's
know,
right.
so-
We need to be connected. We still need, there's still fights of racial injustices and
Right.
things of that sort. And you can only fight that through organizations. Organizing.
Another thing is, though, that the Birmingham Urban League does provide resources, for like a resource hub for people that have needs too.
Right.
So, that's a thing that I think that a lot of people don't know. I know that I brought people, and they've got some of their needs met. So immediate needs.
That's right.
So
Right.
again, black people need to find out, need to become more aware of what's going on, and also
Agreed.
Get involved.
Agreed.
Another thing that I want to talk about, segueing to something that's kind of dear to my heart.
Uh-oh.
Well,
All
see,
right, let's
see,
see.
and I'll tell you why.
Let's see.
Because when I came back to Alabama, I moved to Springville.
Okay.
Now I'm from Hensley, from the Brickyard.
All right.
Right? All my folks have born in Fairfield. All my folks
From
come
the Brickyard,
Right.
okay.
West Side.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
So when I bought my house, I bought it in the area that had the highest rate of homicides, in the neighborhood that had the highest rate of homicides. Hensley Highlands had 4 homicides. Now there was another neighborhood that had 4 homicides too, but those were the 2 highest number. We had 111 last year in the city of Birmingham, and like 170 plus across the county. Right. Well, I moved in because I believe that it doesn't even have to do with being a Christian. It has to do with being a human being. The idea of addressing the needs of people is at the core of my personhood. Now that doesn't make me a saint. That doesn't make me like, I got problems, but my point is this, is that, if I'm going to complain about a problem, then, or if I'm going to be, affected by a problem, then I'd also be trying to affect some solution.
Gotta be a part
I want to talk about white flight
Yeah.
and black flight.
Okay.
Now, what I did was reverse of what I'm talking about. Years ago, white flight was the idea that black people started getting allowed to move into neighborhoods, white people would leave. And then the property values would go down, because a lot of the black people that moved in didn't really know how to handle property, right? They hadn't been taught that. There was no
Didn't have the
legacy,
resources to
so
keep the
didn't have the
properties up.
resources,
Right,
right? All
right,
kinds
right.
of reasons,
That's right.
right? And then when black people in those communities did start getting some affluence, they started leaving. So now you got black flight.
Yeah.
So what happens,
Yeah.
when you have black flight?
Well, essentially what you have is you leave your neighborhoods with this poor resident. So, we have a lot of tracts in the city of Birmingham that are 30% more or higher in poverty rate. And so when you have folks that are affluent, one of the main reasons, or one of the main arguments that were around blacks leaving these communities was the education system. And so what we found is, instead of individuals wanting to stay involved and continue to fight to have a better system in our own communities, they sought better opportunities for their children. And so you really can't fault individuals for that, but you gotta take a second look and say, hey, listen, for instance, for me, I decided to stay here and fight that good fight. So I've been in Birmingham. I was a Birmingham City product. I felt like I did and came out okay. So I felt like my kid going to a city school and me being involved with the city school system and continue to try to help improve it is what is most needed from people that don't decide to leave. And so essentially, you know, when you talk about even the effects of black flight, as I started out saying, is that it really leaves you with people that are below the poverty line. So you have individuals with 4 or 5 people in a household that only make $12,000 a year. And so the tax base isn't there in order to keep the schools to pump into the actual schools that their kids are going to. And so therefore your schools continue to diminish,
right.
To the point to where, you know, you really are on these failing lists and things of that sort because you don't have the resources.
Right.
So it is a major issue when we abandon these communities that once were ours.
Do you remember Roxanne Shante?
I don't believe so.
Roxanne?
Oh, yeah.
Remember that song? She came back with Roxanne's Revenge. It was like the first,
I got you.
You know, yeah.
Yeah, he put me on. You know, he dating himself. I'm just a few years younger. He dating himself.
Yeah. That was during my time.
I got you.
Okay,
I got you.
so
Yeah.
Roxanne, I got a snippet of a video. You know, she did this movie on her life here recently.
Okay.
And one of the things that she said is something that I've heard many people say that I've said is that the black people need to create opportunities in their own neighborhood. Okay, so I'm just a guy, right? Yes, I was a former Birmingham Violence Reduction Initiative Support and Outreach Coordinator. That's not an elected office. It's not an affluent, position, right? I moved from Springville to Inslee, and I said that I'm going to make some difference. I built an organization, and we're putting the neighbor back in the neighborhood. I'm saying, why would not other people do? My thought is, why would not other people do this kind of thing to better their neighborhood? Why would we not get together and start businesses, put together investment groups of people who have equity in their homes? Roxanne said, black people need to come back and buy the hood. Instead of leaving, come back and buy the hood. Because what you're happening, we won't use the G word, right? But what looks to be happening is that there's some other people that have decided, hey, I'm gonna go back and buy the hood.
Right.
So what keeps me from, I bought my house in the hood, so I think, me personally, one of the social norms that needs to change is that we need to, as a community, start looking at the different ways, becoming more creative, looking at the different ways that we can reclaim some of these areas. And then when you do that and you put yourself in, you make an investment in your community, you teach other people to make investment in the community, you build up communities, right? I know that, when I look at some of the situations, of course, I come from the criminal, I was a criminal, right?
Were
so this, yes, okay. I was a bad guy. It's about time stories, and so when people reached out to me, it wasn't the first time they reached out to me that I changed my mind. It wasn't the second time, or the third time. It was several times. And I think that particularly
constant drive. Yeah.
There were people that looked at me with unconditional positive regard. I see people walking down the street with their pants sagging and cutting a fool and got pistols and they doing the things and that's. But what if instead of dealing with them with fear, because I believe that personally that fear and apathy are the things that are driving violence, they're driving domestic violence, they're driving homicide violence, they're driving crime, right? Because here's what's happening, and this is a generalization. A lot of the elders are afraid of the young people, and a lot of the young people feel like the elders don't care. So they don't care is the apathy, and I'm saying that the apathy starts first, and then later when the kids grow up in that apathy, they begin to create a situation where now you got to be afraid of them because they don't really socialize well. Now, I don't know if I explained that, but let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. And I won't stigmatize anybody, right? But case in point, a young man moves into a neighborhood. He somehow got Section 8, and he's got
careful now. Go ahead.
Yeah. But he's working. He's trying to do. But he's got 4 kids. Right now. He's doing everything he can. Good guy. Is he going to have some difficulty? 2 parents have difficulty. One parent is definitely, now 70% of all African American children are raised in single parent homes, right? So we can almost assume, maybe not in every case, but there's going to be some difficulty. But as a neighbor, if that person moves in and I think that I can help them, in fact, it doesn't even matter if it's one guy on Section 8. If a neighbor moves in,
there we go.
Period.
There we go.
I'm thinking that I need to introduce them, help them integrate into the community. Don't put it all on them to find their way.
Right.
Because ultimately, what's going to happen if I'm apathetic to their plight or their presence there, then the things that happen, good or bad, are going to affect me at some point. And in some cases, it's going to be, and this is the truth, in some cases, it's going to be that some people are going to become an element of that community that's not healthy, and then I'm going to be afraid. So my apathy is what starts the fear.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. What happened, I think I was sharing this with y'all, cameraman, is that a part of my apathy I got to see firsthand. So I had a classmate of mine that was killed 3 doors down from my house. Now, I've got a 10-year-old daughter, and I knew what the guy was doing. He was selling drugs out of there, and neighbors knew. And it was amazing to me that after the gentleman lost his life, the posts were, he never bothered anybody, he was a great guy, this, that, and the other. And he was, from my perspective, personally knowing him, he was a good guy, but he was doing something that was illicit. He was doing something that was putting families and communities in trouble. I mean, it was really a bad situation. And so the apathy of, I'm going to just look out the blinds, or I'm not going to look out the blinds, close the blinds, not be involved, not even know my neighbors, is just bad for the community in general. So if you want to fight crime, just thinking about, lowering the crime in your own community, the first things first is if your neighbors know that you knows it, first of all, and that you're involved,
there you go.
If you're involved, then that's a deterrent in itself. But it says, listen, not on my block.
Right.
Because very easily, we just had, not too long ago, the young lady over in Eagle Nook got shot trying to leave the scene of a crime, right? So it could have been my daughter. So they shot this guy 3 doors down from me. My daughter could have been standing out and because I wasn't willing or paying attention or thinking about the fact that I needed to be involved more with the community, that could have been my kid. And now I'm ready to go out there and kill somebody because something happened to my child. So what I should have been doing on the front end is being more involved in my surroundings. We're talking 3 doors down, man. I ain't talking about the next street. So to your point, one of the social norms that have to change, especially in our communities, is we have to be neighborly.
Be neighborly.
Be friend, people that need support and help, watching out for one another. If I'm going out of town and you're a good neighbor and I know that, being able to just be supportive of one another is something we got to do.
Amen.
Yeah.
Listen, we have burned up a good bit of your time today, and I appreciate that. Listen, I want to remind y'all again that on May 19th at True Love Church at 1001 35th Street, Ainsley, we will be putting on the Putting the Neighbor Back in Neighborhood Community Mixer. We invite you out. Everybody in the city of Birmingham is welcome to come out, but if you are a resident of Ainsley, and you can show me an Ainsley address, you can upload a video to this Facebook page that's Putting the Neighbor Back in Neighborhood, hashtag it, Changing Social Norms, and you'll be entered to win a $1,000 gift prize that I'll be giving away on that day. May 19th is called the Good Neighbor Award. Remember, the emphasis is changing social norms. Danny Carr will be out there, Jamaria Moore, myself, and others will be out there to educate us on ways that we can contribute to the betterment and the health of our community. Property values can go up, crime can go down, and things can get a lot better if we could just love your neighbor like you love yourself. Y'all have a good day.
Take care.
All right. I think that game, it did it again.
Change my mind, Lord. Good morning, Lord. I'm lying here again and wondering if I should even get up and go to the church again. No one but you know all the issues that I struggle with. No brotherhood, no bonds, ain't got no real friends. Been raised up praying, singing songs and passive listening.